Hello, my name is Marie-Edith Michel. I'm the Senior Manager of Education and Collections here at the Woodrow Wilson House. We are a trust site, a historic site of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I welcome you today to speak to you about our newest exhibit, Moving Toward Transparency, Woodrow Wilson's Legacy at 100. On February 3rd, 1924, Woodrow Wilson died in this home. In commemoration of his 100th anniversary of his death, we wanted to commemorate his legacy and explore all of the consequential milestones that he made, as well as acknowledge some of the challenges that continue. So in this exhibit, we explore sort of a dual narrative about Woodrow Wilson and his legacy. So as you move to the right side of the exhibit, you will explore and learn about some of the more visionary aspects of his leadership around World War I, progressive politics and progressive reform. He established the Federal Reserve Bureau, which is still very much an economic engine that we rely on today, as well as his leadership of the League of Nations. And as you move to the right-hand side of the exhibit, my right, your left, we will explore some of the more challenging aspects of his leadership around civil liberties, propaganda and suffrage, race and segregation, and again, international diplomacy. And in the center of the exhibit, in the back, we have an exhibit box that celebrates foundationally who the man was in terms of his Virginia upbringing, of Presbyterian parents. We showcase some of his family in terms of his first wife and their three daughters, Ellen Axon and their three daughters. In the middle, we celebrate his swag, key moments in his life at Princeton, as well as, growing up. And on the right-hand side, we pay homage to Edith Wilson, who was his second wife, who is basically responsible for us having this National Historic Site and Museum of Woodrow Wilson. And so that's how you navigate the exhibit hall. And then before you leave, we ask you to fill out your desire. What is your call to action? And share that with us before you leave the exhibit. And so let's take a quick walk through of some of the exhibit cases. And thank you for visiting. We're on the right-hand side of the exhibit, where we're celebrating Woodrow Wilson's visionary leadership. And our first exhibit case celebrates his leadership of World War I. We have a military casing, which was the first shell fired by an American unit October 1917 during World War I. President Wilson kept this on the mantle of his bedroom as a reminder of the tragedy of war. On the left-hand side of this case, we have Woodrow Wilson's war message that he delivered to Congress April 2nd, 1917. He really left an enduring legacy. His transformation of the basic objective of American foreign policy from isolation to internationalism was really evident in this message. In the second exhibit case, we celebrate again Woodrow Wilson's leadership in the era of progressive reforms, much that he instituted during his tenure. For example, the Federal Reserve Act, which was signed by President Woodrow Wilson in 1913, remains a very significant economic engine for the United States. And we have an article about his establishing the 8-hour workday among railroad workers. And we also have the official ballot of the Democratic Party. It's a paper ballot. And we have a cane. And this particular walking stick highlights and commemorates Wilson's triumph in the 1960 presidential election. Inscribed are the names of the states Wilson carried during that election. In this third case on the visionary leadership, we celebrate a man and a president who had a vision for world peace. And most of that vision was through enacting and advocating for the League of Nations. He was instrumental in trying to establish an international organization that would sort of help prevent future conflicts. And so the League really represents a groundbreaking step towards global governance and collective security. It is the foundation for the UN that we know of today. In addition, we have the transcript of the 14 points speech that he provided to Congress, which laid out his vision for a peaceful post-World War I. We have some medals as well that celebrate Woodrow Wilson in a variety of ways. They were given to him by other countries, noting his appreciation, their appreciation for his stellar leadership and promotion of their sovereignty. And this last sculpture represents the top of Wilson Peak in the French Alps. It was presented to President Wilson by the city of Chamonix, France in 1918. The mountain was formerly named after a German explorer and was renamed Wilson Peak in 1918. We're now on the more challenging aspects of his leadership side of the exhibit hall. And this first exhibit case focuses on the obstruction of civil liberties. During Wilson's presidency, while there was a lot of progress in many areas, it was also marked by notable challenges to civil liberties. And these actions, particularly during World War I, kind of overshadowed some of our individual freedoms that we know of today. And so we have a collection here of some cartoons that spoke to re-election propaganda, a poster that reflects the Liberty Bond poster that was created during World War I. This reinforced the idea that it was every individual's responsibility to support the war effort. So during World War I, Joseph Pennell created a series of lithographic documents to support the war efforts. And we have an example of one of them here in this case. In addition, we have a cartoon that was published in a weekly magazine that was based in England. And it started in 1841, which focused on satire and humor. President Woodrow Wilson would frequently read this magazine, and this cartoon discusses the perceptions about U.S. policy towards Mexico before it started actively supporting Mexican revolutionaries. In the race and segregation exhibit case, we view Woodrow Wilson's legacy through the lens of the racial issues that were prominent during his legacy. During his tenure as president, race relations were very difficult. One of the most notable and regressive actions that Wilson did was to segregate federal offices that had been previously integrated. We also have a poster picture of the film, The Birth of a Nation, a film that Woodrow Wilson invited his cabinet to see in the White House, and that was viewed negatively by many groups. We also have a letter from the NAACP to President Woodrow Wilson, strongly condemning and protesting the policy of segregation in the office. Another item that we have is a blue book. It's the Blue Book from Haiti. President Woodrow Wilson established and authorized the occupation of Haiti in 1915, which lasted nearly 3 decades. Woodrow Wilson wrote a lot, and he authored several books. We have this one book on the history of the American people, Volume 5. He focuses on various aspects of our history. In this book, he does talk about the Ku Klux Klan. He never directly condemns the Klan. In this last exhibit case, unfortunately, to highlight some of the areas that challenged Woodrow Wilson in terms of international diplomacy. While he was very much dedicated to the League of Nations, he was never able to get the United States support during his tenure. We also have on display an amendment that was proposed by the Japanese at the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, where they wanted to promote equality within the members of the League of Nations. This amendment was greatly debated by Wilson and others and was never endorsed, unfortunately. And this last piece is a wonderful headpiece that was a gift given to Woodrow Wilson in July of 1919 by a delegation from Abyssinia, which is now Ethiopia. Their sovereignty was threatened by Italy, who had previously attempted to colonize their country. This Abyssinian delegation came to meet with President Wilson, seeking diplomatic opportunities and discussions to open up trade relations. This did not ultimately occur, and the delegation was not able to get assurance from President Wilson of their support. And above these exhibit cases are collages of key figures and cartoons that played a role in these discussions on race and segregation, international diplomacy, and civil liberties. In this last case, in the center of the room, we foundationally try to illustrate who President Woodrow Wilson was, the man. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister, which deeply influenced his moral outlook and approach to life. We also have some mementos from his time at Princeton University, where he was not only an academic student, but president. We also, of course, had to display Woodrow's signature hat that really represented his swag. Above, some pictures from his childhood through his presidency, as well as through his time in Princeton University, and note some key quotes that he said throughout his lifetime. And on the right, we have the last collage, which is about Edith Wilson, his second wife. She is the reason that we are here as a museum, because she took a long time to establish and document Woodrow Wilson's legacy as president. And so we have over 8,000 items in this collection and have her to thank for it. So we have a number of pictures of her life with Wilson and post-Wilson, because she lived here for another 30 years. And over here is the last section of the exhibit. Before you leave, we wanted to ask you, what is your calling? How are you going to move forward? What will you support? What will you impact? What is it that you feel is important that we impact?